Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, what should we play first then? What do you fancy?
We can do a bit of All of Me.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Earplugs in.
Yeah.
To be fair, when I am about to play guitar, people do put earplugs in, so I'm quite used to that.
It's not you. Trust me. It's a weird habit of mine.
All right.
And so,
Yeah, absolutely.
cool.
Remi, how you doing?
Good man, how you doing?
I'm all right. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's cool. We're in your lair, your den.
Yeah, the man cave.
Yeah, absolutely. This is fun. It feels like I'm on your podcast. It's like I'm at your house.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, well, thanks for coming all this way.
Absolute pleasure. It's nice. It's nice to get out of London. And if you do not want to be in London, this is like peak not London. This part of the world. It's so leafy and green and rural and farmy and
Yeah.
It's mega. Because you're a local lad, right? You're...
Relatively, yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in Bromyard, which is a little town about 25 minutes from here.
Right.
But it's still in the sticks, you know, it's fields for miles, you know, outside
Yeah.
the door and all that. So it's,
Mega.
yeah, I'm from the country.
Yeah. You were never tempted to move to London or a big city like that?
No. I've always wanted to live in the countryside, you know. The more remote, the better, I guess.
You don't come across as being a kind of rat race type of person. You kind of... Do you know what I mean? You suit being in the countryside. You kind of...
Yeah, I mean, growing up I was always... You know, I love nature, I love animals, I love walking up mountains, and running in fields. And
Not a big fan of getting the tube and...
No, that's never really... Well, I've only been on the tube a handful of times in my life, to be honest, but it's not a lifestyle that's ever kind of appealed to me.
Sure.
I've always just... I mean, I grew up... Bromyard, as I say, is a town, but a small town. Yeah. But... even when I was a kid, I wanted to live in like the Welsh Mountains. So that's kind of always been my calling. And
you know, you're a very, very successful guitar player in the UK. No, for real, man. Like, no, for real, because I mean, you tour all around the UK, you play loads of really nice venues, you're a very well-known name. But you never moved to a big city, and for me, it's weird because it seems like every gypsy jazz player, especially the ones that are pursuing it full time, they kind of all come to London. But you've managed to kind of... You know, you've not had to do that. You've managed to do it without having to go to the city. Yeah, I guess. I don't know why really. I just moving to like London was never on the cards. It was never something I aspired to do. Yeah. I just wanted to make it work my own way. Right? It's just good because, like, you know, I used to live in York. York's got a really good scene, and you can get a fair bit of work there. But to generate the amount of work that you've done. From Bromyard, it's good going. Like
well, there's a lot of travelling. That's the one thing is we do a lot of miles in the van, and but I'm used to that. You know, even when I was younger, when I was a teenager and I was playing rock bands, I was we were off in the van. You know, we were playing all over the country, a lot in the Midlands, the kind of more East Midlands, I guess, and so just got used to that kind of motorway life. Yeah. You know, in the evenings. Yeah. And I love late night motorway driving. You know, I don't know, something about it. I've been doing it for so long that it's just
put on some good music and
just drive, the street lights and just empty service stations, all that. Although we haven't done that for a while now.
Yeah, that's a thing of the past now, isn't it? Shit, yeah.
And it is tiring, obviously, but it's the lifestyle that I'm kind of used to. And, and been doing
working musician.
Yeah.
And so you're saying when you're in your teenage years, you were more playing rock and stuff. Were you always into the jazz, or did that come along later on?
That came to me later on, really. I grew up, so I started guitar when I was 7, when I got my first proper guitar. Yeah. And I had kind of toy guitars before that. So I was always into guitar, thanks to my dad, basically, who plays. And
so he sort of introduced you to playing guitar then?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't force it on me at all, really. But he played, and he used to sit around, after work playing his guitar. Yeah. And I used to flick through his guitar magazines, and when he was watching Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock on the telly, I'd be sat on the sofa. So I was surrounded by guitar from a very young age.
Much like you are now.
Like I am now, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. In fact, actually, this guitar here is...
this is so much fun.
This belongs to my uncle, actually. But this is... When I was a little boy, my dad was borrowing this off my uncle. And Dad's left-handed, so the strings were strung the other way around. And... there's a photo of me when I was about 3 years old with this on my lap. Wow. Playing, I wasn't playing, it was more of a prop,
Yeah, you're just looking cool with it, yeah.
But that was my life, as long as I can remember. And then I got my first real guitar when I was 7, and then played rock and blues from then, Beatles, Peter Green, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin. Yeah.
Sadly passed away recently. So you started playing when you were 7?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's amazing.
Long time ago. Yeah.
So you were... I mean, obviously you still play all the rock and blues and everything else now, but you were mainly playing rock. And when did you get into... Was it Gypsy Jazz you started with, or was it jazz, or...?
It was Gypsy Jazz, really, at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I was interested... I liked the sound of all jazz really. I wasn't like you know, I'd been listening to Joe Pass and people like that. But I think Gypsy Jazz was a kind of way in, because when you listen to like Joe Pass on, you know, the Virtuoso albums, and you think, how am I even going to start? Whereas I might be able to play like Minor Swing and have a jam down the pub. So So that kind of ended up, that's my way in.
Gypsy Jazz is like a gateway drug, I guess.
Yeah, in a way. And I know I love it. It's not like it's in any way like a dumbed down version. I'm not trying to make it sound like that, but
I hear you.
It's more accessible for a rock guitar player.
Absolutely. Well, totally. I mean, Minor Swing is 3 chords. You know, you can
use your pentatonic scale when that you already know, and you can get going.
Absolutely.
Like that. So that's how I kind of got into it.
Yeah. Did you get like lessons on Gypsy Jazz, or were you just listening to records and stealing licks and?
Mainly just working things out on like YouTube and listening. Yeah. I had a couple of lessons with Gary Potter very early on, actually.
Nice.
I went to see one of his gigs. I think it was just before I actually started really getting into Gypsy Jazz, but I went to see him because I was aware of his playing and stuff. Yeah. I had his DVD.
Yeah.
And I went up after and spoke to him and went for like a couple of like hour-and-a-half lessons, like that. And we just sat around talking and playing, and so that was good. But mostly it was just, you know, going to Samoa, get on YouTube and transcribing, and that's about it really. Yeah, and that's how I do it now.
And as much as you've had a trio and you've gigged that trio for a while now, pretty. I won't say relentlessly, but you've been working hard with that trio for a while now.
Yeah, a long time, lots of gigs.
Yeah. It's amazing, and you do that trio, but you also do not just Gypsy Jazz now, but you have like these blues rock kind of trios with drums and bass, which is pretty mint, and then you do straight head jazz now as well.
A little bit, yeah. That's something I'd like to do more of, but with guitar, bass, drums. But jazz. Yeah. But the jazz I do is always like leaning into blues as well. So although like Wes Montgomery is like probably my favourite jazz guitar player, I don't often do gigs of that like that.
Yeah,
you know, all jazz straight ahead.
Do you know something? I think a lot of jazz players they really forget about the blues, and I think it's a bit of a shame because, like, you know, we all like outside modern sounding stuff, but it's not just the notes, it's the feel. So like if you take a guitar player like Pat Martino, and like we love him, I think he's mega, but you know there's not many bends, the lines are all kind of the same expression, same volume, these kind of 16 notes line, just and one of the things I like about Django is he would bring in, you wouldn't really call it bluesy elements, but in a way it was little bends, it was slides, doing things with the guitar that the guitar's good at. Yeah. I think a lot of jazz players forget to like put in a bend or a hammer on or
Well, I'm not sure. It's weird because I think a lot of jazz guitar players are trying to emulate other jazz instruments.
Yeah.
I've heard, I think it was Pat Martino actually who said he wanted to sound like a piano.
Yeah.
So there's no bending on a piano, and he uses heavy strings.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Charlie Christian wanted to sound like Lester Young.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there's a lot of that goes on with jazz guitar, and especially the piano thing. I think that's
Grant Green as well. He was always saying he just wants to sound like a sax player.
Right.
There's no chords anywhere in his playing. It's just all lines.
Right. Yeah. So you get a lot of that, and that informs the way you play. Like I come from you know, that kind of playing.
Yeah.
And so I want to put that in my gypsy playing.
Yeah, totally.
But when I first got into gypsy jazz, I was, you know, trying to avoid my rock licks.
Of course, they're almost a bit embarrassing to pull them out, like, cause
You want to adapt that. You want to adopt that gypsy sound, that gypsy jazz sound.
Yeah.
And but then after about maybe a year or two, it was like, actually I want to make a point of my rock.
Yeah,
background,
absolutely.
You know, and so we started putting, we started making arrangements using like Jimi Hendrix riffs and stuff like that in the Django-y stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's how I've been ever since then, really.
I love that, like, respect, man, because it's like you say, a lot of the jazz players, because the top jazz musicians, shall we say, I know the guitar players came a little bit after the sax players and the piano players, so they try and emulate the sax players and the piano players, and I think also they're only really thinking about notes and harmony and not about expression. They're not thinking about bends, they're not thinking about that sort of stuff. So I guess that explains why. But, you know, I like jazz, I like blues, like whatever, but I like guitars. I mean, obviously you do too. Yeah. Just a bit. And so I like it when guitar players utilise what a guitar can do, which you do loads. Just in that one solo, there's loads of cool things in there, little bends and little things like that. It's mint.
Cool,
you know?
Thanks, man. Yeah. I mean, I love the guitar. You know, I love other instruments as well. I went through a big period of transcribing trumpet players. I really love trumpet because that's a very expressive instrument as well. Of course, you can. It's very dynamic. It's got vocal-like quality, and so you know, I was really into Clifford Brown and Chet Baker and into Marcellus, people like that. And then I've been through other phases as well. I'm kind of constantly changing what I'm kind of into. So it's my playing kind of changes.
I guess it's just fairly comes along kind of naturally. It's just like whatever you're listening to at the minute, whatever takes your fancy kind of thing. Exactly,
yeah, and that informs what you're playing at the time. Yeah. I'm kind of going for a bit of a blues phase at the minute because I've been getting back into the electric solid body type playing and so trying to do that, you know, doing things on gypsy guitars you don't hear.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which I love all that Jimi Hendrix stuff.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Puts your guitar out of tune usually. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Perfect. Well, hey man, let's play another tune.
Yeah.
Anything you fancy in particular?
I don't know. Do a bit of like a minor 12 bar, something in G minor.
Yeah.
Like a minor bluesy type thing.
Yeah, wicked.
Yeah. Cool. What kind of tempo do you want to do?
Whatever, man. You call it out.
You know, just something like that.
All that going on. That was great. That was brilliant. So here's the thing, right? You play all these different styles, and you play on all these different kinds of guitar. Do you like change right hand technique for different guitars? Do you change plectrums for different guitars?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So obviously with the gypsy guitar is predominantly gypsy picking,
yep.
That type of picking technique. But I'm not strict with it. I'll often, bring my wrist in and sweeps and stuff like that. So I'm not strict in any way. On a Strat, I'll use a similar picking. This probably won't pick up through there, but a similar picking technique to on a gypsy. A little bit, but more.
You can play it. It'll pick it up.
This
the
kind
wrist is kind of in there now. Hey,
yeah, but then sometimes I'll be, which is kind of gypsy picking.
Yeah.
But then some things I'll be, which is less gypsy picking.
Depending on the lick, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And obviously, when you've got gain, you want to be muting the strings because of the
extraneous noise.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, I play differently on a guitar like this. I don't play as much of this kind of those kind of long kind of gypsy style runs. Yeah. I tend not to do that. I'm more of a kind of a bluesier player when I play Strats because the tone lends itself to that more.
Totally, yeah.
And then when I play Les Pauls, I'm even more electric because they're lighter strings, shorter scale length. The strings are I use 10s on a Les Paul. Strats I use 10s or 11s depending on how I feel. And so if I'm on 11s on a Strat, it's much tighter.
Okay.
And so it needs a bit more force.
Right.
Whereas like 10s on a Les Paul is really like they bend so easily.
Yeah.
You don't have to play with it. You don't have to dig the tone out so much because they're humbuckers as well. They tend to compress the sound a bit more.
Yeah.
So the picking technique is not so important for tone reasons.
Okay.
So I tend to be, I think when I play a Les Paul, in a bridge position with a kind of a rock sound.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot more kind of pull-offs and things,
Of course, yeah.
So I'm using less of kind of playing every note.
Yeah, and that's just the style, right?
That's the style, and it's the sound of the guitar lends it that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Paul Gilbert?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Paul Gilbert, he was amazing.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, learning to be a bit of a shredder when he was first playing and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was this kind of culture of trying to pick every note because it was like more badass, But he was saying he's found in his time the best sort of bang for your buck lick is often a mix of the two, and pull-offs have their own sound. Sometimes they sound mint, you know what I mean? Why limit yourself like
exactly
that? And gypsy jazz is a funny one because there is a bit of a kind of orthodoxy in gypsy jazz. Some things are considered a bit of a heresy to be doing too many pull-offs or hammer-ons or whatever, but I think that's changing a little bit now.
It's definitely changing, yeah. I think because of the internet, YouTube has changed everything with gypsy jazz, I think, because now anybody can start learning it. You didn't have to go to Samoa anymore. Although it's still good, but so people from different, it's becoming less kind of, what's the word? It's less kind of distilled as a single thing and more just like seeping out into culture, guitar culture, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's less of a niche.
Yeah, and I think it's just funny because I remember first trying to learn it, and similar to you, just going on YouTube and trying to listen to records and stuff, and feeling almost a pressure that you have to play with a big pick, and you have to, everything's got to be perfectly rest-stroked. It has everything, no hammer-ons, no pull-ons, nothing.
Yeah.
And again, if you listen to the really top players today, they're sneaking a bit of that in because they're like, well, it sounds good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't see why it has to be a recreation of the past. I think obviously I've got nothing against if people want a really enthusiastic in Django sound and want to get that sound.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's totally cool. But for me, I wasn't born and raised on Django's music.
Yeah.
I was born and raised on Neil Young and Peter Green, and so I want that music to inform my gypsy playing.
So. Amazing. Now look, so how many guitars have we got here? This is a lot. These are all yours.
Yeah, apart from...
Do you know what, just before we do, I'm just going to double check that this hasn't died or anything.
Still rolling.
I can just edit this bit out, yeah. Make sure we get these guitars in. Yeah.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, so these are all yours, aren't they?
Yeah, apart from that one, which is my uncle's, which I'm just borrowing off him.
Yeah.
I was going to try and get it going again, but it's not very... needs a bit of work.
Right.
But, yeah, like...
How long have you been collecting all these guitars?
Well, I think this guitar here I had when I was 14, and this is, I think, apart from obviously that, my uncle's guitar, I think this one is the one that goes furthest back with me. This is my first proper like Fender Strat, although it's only a Mexican, it's not a...
Sure.
But it's a 60s reissue type, you know, the mint guard, and it's the, this is the guitar I did a lot of my rock gigs on back in the day.
Well, I can tell, I can see.
Dropped a few times, and
yeah.
It needs a bit of work. It's not my main gigging Strat anymore, but this one's kind of sentimental, a lot of sentimental vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this is my main Les Paul, which I had when we were in a rock band. We got a little kind of independent record contract, and I was playing Epiphones,
right?
Les Pauls, and my dad said, "Well, it's probably time you got yourself a proper Gibson," and so
the real deal.
So he helped me get this, and this is have a go if you want.
Yeah, man. And you picked the colour as well?
Well, it's a weird one, yeah, because I always wanted a cherry sunburst, you know, like Jimmy Page, but I just saw that in there, and it was just a nice sounding guitar as well. I think of the ones on the wall at the time, it was the best sounding one.
It's cool. I like this a lot. I mean, I've got friends who wouldn't like it that much.
Yeah,
but I think it's kind of cool.
Again, that finish gets a lot of hate on the internet, you know, when it crops up on forums and stuff. But on most stages under red light, you carry on, man. It's under most stages under red light. Yeah. It looks like a gold top.
Okay.
The amount of times people have said, "Oh, I love the gold top Les Paul."
Do you know what? I used to play in this rock band, and we recorded an album in Wales in this little cottage. And the cottage was owned by a guy, I can't remember his name, but he played bass for a bit in Van der Graaf Generator.
Oh, okay.
And he played a little bit in Hawkwind. Remember Hawkwind?
Mm-hmm.
So when Lemmy left, I think this guy replaced him.
Oh, okay.
On bass. And now he just lives in his cottage in Wales. We did this album, and he lent us loads of his guitars to do it. And he had this gold top Les Paul. And
a proper original.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, it was... I mean, I was playing bass on that, so I didn't get to play the guitars too much. But yeah, they're really cool. I don't have a Les Paul. I had an Epi Les for a while.
Yeah.
But I noticed you don't have any tellies either. Do you have any tellies?
I don't have any tellies, no.
So, do you not like them, or?
No, I actually would like to have one, but at the moment I can't really justify any more guitars. But
I don't know about that. If you can justify these, what's one more? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I can approximate a telly. I've always been more of a Strat guy, really, because I use the middle pickup a lot on Strats, which obviously tellies don't have. And so when I'm playing a lot of blues, I'm in the middle position, and I also like the position 2 and 4 where they're blending the two pickups, which you don't get on a telly. But one day I'll probably try and get a Telecaster of some type.
Yeah, I think you should, because I mean, I don't have as many guitars as this. Not many do, I suppose, but I've got a telly, and I need a Strat.
Yeah.
A Les Paul.
Yeah.
I've got a nice... for my archtop, I've got an Epiphone Broadway, which I really like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I know those ones.
But I really want a 335 as well.
Yeah, I would like a 335.
Yeah, in fact, I'm surprised you don't have one of those, knowing the kind of music you're into.
Well, I've always gone Les Paul, because, I mean, obviously the pickup configuration is the same, but I've always ended up with Les Pauls, but I'm... Tellies and 335.
Talk more this way into the...
Sorry.
No, that's fine, don't worry.
No, yeah, I would like 325, but that's quite an interesting one. You say you're a bass player, so...
I wasn't very good to begin with. and my ones had 4 strings.
So this is E to E. It's tuned identical to a guitar, but an octave down. So it's not like a 6-string bass.
So you can...
Exactly, yeah.
That's so weird.
They made them in the 60s, you know, and like Jack Bruce and Peter Green actually played one.
Wow.
But this is obviously a reissue.
So this essentially just sounds like a bass, this bit. But
yep.
And like, you say Peter Green and people play them, what did they play on them? Were they playing bass lines on them, or were they...
Well, yeah, some of them used it as basses. Like, I've seen footage of Jack Bruce just using it in Cream, you know, as a bass. And but I think what was common with them was to roll off the bass and then have them as an extra kind of overdub instrument. I think the Beach Boys used to do that. They'd have a bass player, and they'd have one of these, and they'd like overdub maybe a line. You know, I don't know what the line would be, but you know, they might have some kind of line, and they'd have they used to have switches here which would roll out the bass, so you get a really high, you get the low note but a high tinny tone.
Yeah.
So I think I got a feeling there's one of these on Good Vibrations.
And it was just to double the bass track?
It would double like guitar parts and stuff. It was mainly a studio thing.
How interesting.
I use it.
Yeah, do you get much use out of this? Like, what do you play on this?
Well, I've been meaning to use it on gigs actually, because I've been
just turn it around a little bit so we can get a good look at that.
Yeah,
look at that.
It's called a Bass 6. But I've been meaning to do some stuff on it with gigs because I've been coming up with some kind of arrangements that I can do on it. But mainly I use it for recording. When I play bass, when I record overdub bass, I'd rather play that because it feels more like a guitar, you know. So the scale length is different.
Yeah.
It's the same scale length as like a Hofner violin bass, so it's shorter.
How did you find this? Like, how did you come across this?
It belonged to a friend of mine, and he sold it me. He's a bass player.
Okay.
And he put it up for sale. So
amazing.
I had it. But I really like it. It's probably the most unusual guitar in my kind of collection,
that's interesting. So so they had that on Good Vibrations.
I'm pretty sure there is one on there, but I know they were involved with Beach Boys recordings.
Okay.
Was
that because I'm trying to work it out? Like, were there just producers in the '60s that were digging that, or is that a thing more from the '60s that died out? That's why we don't see them much now. Or?
They stopped making them after the '60s. I think. They only made them for a short period of time, and then they stopped making them. Reissued them very recently. Like, that's quite a new instrument, and I think they're kind of making a resurgence. But I didn't realise Peter Green, because obviously he passed away. Yeah. Recently, and I was looking through photos of his, and I saw a photo of him playing one on Green Manalishi, and on a live gig, and so I didn't realise, but I know I've seen photos of John Paul Jones from Zeppelin. Yeah. Jack Bruce.
Oh yeah.
I think even there was one in the Beatles kind of. I think it was George Harrison. I've seen a photo with one.
I know John Paul Jones plays an 8-string bass on. It might be like Achilles' Last Stand or one of those. Yeah. And I think that's like a mandolin, right? Is it like
twinned?
Yeah, but is it like E and then octave E above it, or is it just?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah,
okay.
I know the instrument you're on about though. Yeah. Yeah. The photo I've seen of him with one of those was pre-Zepp. It was when he was a session guy.
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't seen him use it with Zepp because I think he was mostly on jazz basses.
Right.
For the early part of Zepp.
Yeah. You know what's funny actually? At work, at the vinyl place, you know, I've got hundreds of records going across my desk, and it was a Donovan record, Hurdy-Gurdy Man.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I remember that one. So I was having a listen, and I was like, God, it sounds a lot like Led Zeppelin, this. And then when I looked at the record, it's John Bonham on drums, John Paul Jones on bass, and Jimmy Page on guitar. Really? Yeah. I was like,
that's good.
Apparently that's where the three of them first met. I think they'd met individually around about, but that's where they first met, the three guys on a because John Paul Jones was asked, I can't remember who it was, somebody rang him up, it might have been for that Donovan gig, and was just like, somebody was like, do you do producing? Did somebody say you do producing? He's like, yeah, I produce, and he doesn't at all, he's the bass player, but he said, yeah, I can do that, fine, and then like bought a book on like how to produce records or something. Yeah. And I think he was the producer. He produced a few Donovan records. Okay. I imagine you're kind of into Donovan, I guess.
Well, I know Hurdy-Gurdy Man.
Yeah. And
didn't Donovan? Do you know Dear Prudence, the Beatles?
Yeah.
I think it's on the White Album. I think it was Donovan who showed John Lennon, like the finger picking style on that song or something.
Yeah, I've heard a story about this.
Yeah.
He taught them something.
Yeah, and then he turned that into Dear Prudence. I could be wrong with my details there, but
it's really funny when you hear stories about how people learnt stuff back in the 60s. Like, there's a story of, I don't know, George Harrison and maybe the other guys. They knew a guitar player on the other side of Liverpool who knew a chord.
Yeah.
And so they got the bus over and they paid him like some money to show him a chord.
Wasn't it B7?
Something like that.
They came back with a B7.
Yeah, there's this guy in Liverpool selling chords. He's loaded like...
selling chords. That's funny.
Cool, man. Well, speaking of chords, let's play another tune.
Cool.
How about something like a ballad or something like that?
Yeah, what about like... Sentimental Mood? Do you ever play that?
Yes,
yeah.
Let's play that. I love that one. That's one of my favourites.
How do you want to do it?
If you just bring it with a...
Something like that.
That was great. Brilliant. That's really cool.
I think I'm a bit out of tune.
That's what unison bending will do.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So here's the thing then. You've been cooped up in lockdown, but you've also been doing like a radio show.
Oh yeah.
Is that right? I'm a bit embarrassed because I haven't tuned in, but I keep meaning to. Is that something you do from here, or is it like on a local radio station? Or?
Yeah, well, it's a new station that was set up during lockdown by a friend of mine called Rich, who was he's a DJ, so he lost all his work like all the musicians.
Of course, yeah, of course.
And so he figured out through the magic of the internet how he could like broadcast a DJ set kind of thing, you know, online, and he called it Bromyard FM. Yeah. Even though it's not an FM station, it's an internet station. Oh, okay. At the moment, at least.
There's aspirations to be FM.
They'd like to grow the station, so it might. I think more likely it'll end up on DAB.
Okay.
DAB, but yeah. So it's called Bromyard FM, and he shared it on Facebook the first night that he did it, and I was like there listening, you know, just like commenting, it was just right at the beginning of lockdown, and it was just nice to hear other people's voices and all of that, and then. The thing just grew, and within like a few weeks there was like over 5,000 people in the group that he'd set up on Facebook, and it was being featured on like I think it was on Virgin News and on the radio, and it's been featured on the Huff Post,
really,
and all kinds of things, and it's just grown and grown. And he's got more of his kind of mates to come and do their own shows. Okay, and so we all work from home, and through software we can kind of connect to the server. So BFM radio, Bromyard FM, is running 24/7, and it runs like auto playlists through the night and stuff. Yeah. And then during the days, we've got, I don't know, maybe like 8, maybe 10 different presenters. Yeah. And so he asked me to do the jazz and blues show. So I do that 2 hours every Thursday night.
Tremendous.
And it's cool, yeah. And I do it from here, and I just play loads of tunes, and then requests come in on like Facebook and the emails and stuff. And
so it sounds like fun, because I'm not as bad these days, but I used to be the worst for turning up at parties and then completely taking over the music thing and putting on stuff that nobody wants to listen to, like killing the party. But I just really like this track, and I think everyone has to hear it. Yeah, but this is like the socially acceptable version of that, right? Because you're on the radio, you're allowed to pick your favourite tunes.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a Facebook group, and you post in there at the beginning of your show, and then people are like commenting and messaging live. Yeah. And then you can give them shout outs, and you can play their requests and all that stuff.
That's mega.
So I really enjoy it, because for me, I'm just sat in here. I mean, if there was a camera in the corner filming me when I do it live, it's just me just basically listening to music. Yeah. And then like introducing the next track.
It's quite a nice evening, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I get to pick the tunes I really like, and I like to research them as well. So I find out what year they were recorded and what musicians featured on the tracks.
What's the deal with like licensing and royalties, and can you play anything? Is there money being paid to like PRS or something like that?
Yeah, it's all legit. It's all. I don't know the details, but Rich, they pay a kind of a royalty license. It's all properly licensed, you know. Because there was a GoFundMe page at the beginning, and I think it raised like a couple of £1,000, right? You know, and it's all in a kitty basically, and it's paying for licensing costs, website costs, because they've got. They've got their website and the server space. I'm not very techie when it comes to that kind of stuff.
All right, yeah. Because, I mean, I don't know much about it. Like, I guess it's probably like a yearly payment they've got to make to PRS, and then you've got to tell them what you play and stuff. Because, I remember doing some gigs where, the law was changed a little while ago, where venues under something like 200 people don't have to pay a music license now, I think. Is that right? Is that right? No?
We pay a music license here, and we get 40 people in that room. So
maybe it's.
I'm not sure.
So maybe not 200. There is a cut off.
There might be, yeah.
But yeah, I remember doing some gigs and like the owner would be like, right, you have to put a list of every song you've played and stuff.
Yeah, the set list thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which we never did. Oh, the only time we did it was in the band where we played originals, and the guy who wrote the songs wanted his royalties for his tunes.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I don't have to submit a set list. I'm not sure how it works, whether he's just got, because it's so small, a small station compared to like, you know, the bigger stations. You might just have a kind of a blanket kind of fee.
I think it's something like that. I think it's like you pay a fee and then play whatever tunes you want.
And it might be with PRS and PPL, because PPL covers the recordings, I think.
Okay.
And PRS covers the compositions.
Right. Okay.
But I'm not sure how. And there's MCPS as well. So
there's a lot.
It's confusing on that stuff.
You know, like, right. I'm a musician, so obviously, I'm happy supporting musicians getting paid for composing stuff, recording stuff, whatever. But sometimes it's a bit of a pain because I like going to the pub, and I often like bringing a guitar with some mates. It's really fun just to jam in the beer garden or even just in the pub. Most pubs are really appreciative if somebody just strikes up a tune. Yeah. And when I go to Ireland, like my dad's Irish, so I go over there a bit, and you know, it's always a bit of music being played in the pub and that. But I remember going to one pub and we started playing the tune, and they said, "Oh, you can't play it here." I said, "Why?" I said, "Well, we don't have a license." And I was explaining that you don't actually really need a license for this size thing, but he wasn't having it. And I just said, "So what? If I just like whistled Happy Birthday now, do I need a license for that?" Like, I like the fact that there's people getting money who probably deserve it, but I don't like the way it kind of chokes spontaneous performance down the pub, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's weird as well, because the other thing is if you play all original material, I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure you don't need a license. So if you went in there and made up a load of 12 bars and just played on 12 bars, but didn't play, you know, Sandu or whatever. Just play improvised. Now, I think that would be royalty free in theory, but as soon as you start playing compositions,
it feels weird, that to me. Do you know what I mean? Like if I just went down the pub and just started singing The Wild Rose, well, nobody owns that one, I suppose, but Blowing in the Wind or something, and then all of a sudden there's a little ka-ching somewhere, and there's a bit more money in Bob Dylan's bank account. I don't get it. Like,
well, it's complicated, isn't it? The music business is so complicated, and the way it's evolved, it has to evolve to fit the current technology, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. And it's struggling with that, isn't it?
Trying to keep up, it's, I just try and play guitar.
Mate, I hear you, brother. I hear you. Yeah, because I mean, like, with your career is performance first, really, more than like recording or composing, I guess.
It has been, yeah.
I
mean, that's something I might try and change a little bit, but
do more like.
I'd like to record more and write more. I mean, I always have written, but I've not get to perform them so much, because when you go out on a gig, you know, people want you to play Sweet Georgia Brown, Bossa Dorado, and you know,
it's also hard because unless it's just like a super basic standard which has charts, it's hard to get anyone to play them because they actually have to rehearse. You have to rehearse, which in jazz that's unheard of. Yeah, I don't rehearse for gigs. You meet strangers and you know the same tunes and you play. That's how it works. Yeah.
And especially, and as well, a lot of my compositions aren't jazz like standards.
Right, exactly.
They might be like tunes that you'd play in a rock band.
With like written parts and arrangements and stuff.
Yeah, or stuff that, you know, do this bit, do that bit, and then, you know, there's a bit of this. This riff goes on for a bit, and then it goes to that bit. Yeah. So these kind of compositions that are kind of through written rather than kind of just verse chorus.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. It's hard, when we were kids, it was easy because we had nothing else to do, so we just did it.
And also, that's the thing. Before you get into jazz, it's considered a given that you have to rehearse and learn stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas in jazz, you learn like the skill set to like read charts and improvise, and maybe you learn some melodies, and you can have a very successful career with just that and not really have to do any more learning after that, you know? Yeah. I mean, obviously learning licks or whatever, but, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I love rehearsing, personally. Like, that's something I've always loved doing right from the band days. Yeah. It's like getting arrangements together and I like jamming as well, don't get me wrong. Totally, I love that kind of aspect of it, but it's very difficult in adult life. Yeah. Because we used to do that all the time when we were kids at school. We'd come home from school every day and just jam for hours.
Those were the days.
Yeah. Everybody lives all over the place and you know, busy and stuff.
Yeah. life.
Yeah.
It happens.
That's what happens. Yeah, yeah.
Cool, man. Now then, look, how long have we been rocking? Oh, about an hour. All right, cool. Well, shall we play another one and then wrap it up?
Cool, man. Yeah.
This has been loads of fun. Thanks so much for doing it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, brilliant. And check out Bromyard FM.
Yeah, BFM. They've just rebranded it, actually.
BFM.
So by the time this goes out, it will be called BFM Radio.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And
which was Bromyard FM, but they've changed it to Born for Music Radio.
Cool.
Because they want to grow the station.
Cool. And have you got anything? Obviously, there's not much coming up with COVID, I guess, but is there anything on the horizon maybe happening?
No, I mean, we're doing our first gig here next week.
Okay. What, here, like,
here on the lawn?
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, yeah. Weather permitting, but we're going to be putting a stage at the bottom of the lawn, and we're going to... It'll all be socially distanced, probably, and everything.
Yeah,
but,
brilliant.
So that'll be fun.
Everybody go to that, but I will tell you, it's fucking hard to get here. Yeah. Well, it's not too hard, but it's out of the way.
Out of the way, yeah. That should be fun. But other than that, it's check out like YouTube and stuff, because I'm more active on that than I was before.
Actually, it's quite fun being here, because I recognise this backdrop quite well. I recognise this room. I've seen it all the time.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. All right, last one, man. Maybe a blues.
A blues? Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Like B flat, like
flat.
a swing type jazz blues.
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
Oh, and like and subscribe and do all that stuff. You know what to do. Here you go. Brilliant. Hey, that was class. Thanks,
cool, man. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Me too. That was a blast, man.